Khrushchev always had a different flavor on the Soviet political scene. His affection for Ukraine is one of the keys to understanding the character code of this iron-fisted reformer. He was not a Ukrainian, but a red cadre grown on Ukrainian soil. He was not a nationalist, but at a crucial moment he did something for Ukraine that history still repeats today: the transfer of Crimea to Ukraine. This decision, once regarded by future generations as a casually signed disaster, had a very different meaning in the eyes of Khrushchev. Khrushchev was born in the province of Kursk, now part of Russia, but spent almost all of his childhood and youth in eastern Ukraine. He worked as a miner, turner, and apprentice in the Donbass, and also joined the Bolshevik Party in Ukraine. It was in the area of Donetsk, then called Stalino, that he first became a local cadre. It can be said that it was the land of Ukraine that boiled a poor boy into a man who later climbed to the Kremlin. "I am not Ukrainian, but Ukraine is the cradle of my political life," he once said. He worked as a cadre in Kharkiv, built dams on the banks of the Dnieper River, took part in a party purge in Kiev, and then simply became the first secretary of the Communist Party of Ukraine, ruling the republic for 7 years, 1938 to 1949. In that position, he saw the horrors of war burn through the land and personally organized the post-war reconstruction. He witnessed the ruins of Nazi villages, and he also worked with the people to clear away the broken walls and rebuild the fields and plants. Khrushchev's feelings for Ukraine were a mixture of blood, mud, ash and idealism. In 1954, Khrushchev gave the go-ahead to transfer Crimea from the Russian Federation to Ukraine. It was a decision that is still repeated in geopolitics today. Why? Because Khrushchev believed, a nation is revived by a republic that can produce, rebuild, heal water, and grow land. After the war, Crimea was devastated, lack of water and food, transportation was paralyzed, and the Ukraine, which bordered the country and was highly resilient, became the most realistic life-saving neighbor. He signed the transfer order on the grounds of economic integration and national unity. And he actually said more bluntly in an internal meeting, "This is what Ukraine deserves." Many people think that this is a pat decision, but in fact Crimea and Ukraine's economic and administrative relations have long been inextricably linked. And for Khrushchev, this is even more emotional return. He wants to put Ukraine on the horse again. Khrushchev's children recalled that Ukraine was always at the top of the list of countries that their father remembered in his later years. He once said privately, "If the Soviet Union is to become modern, Ukraine has to get better first." It was for this reason that he not only assigned Crimea to Ukraine, but also strongly supported its industrial development, authorizing the construction of several railroads, irrigation systems, and power projects. Even in the meetings of the Central Committee, he repeatedly emphasized, "Don't send everything to Moscow." This attitude of downward decentralization was later regarded by Brezhnev and others as weak federalist tendencies, and eventually became one of the hidden evidence of his downfall. From another perspective, Khrushchev's Ukrainian policy signaled that he had already thought about another possibility for the Soviet Union. It was not a barrel of iron, but a symbiosis of cooperation. To this day, Khrushchev's gift of the Crimea still stirs up historical waves between Ukraine and Russia. Some call him hasty and emotional. Some say he is a national hero. Others say his approach was both politically calculating and deeply patriotic. We cannot define whether Khrushchev's choice was absolutely right, but we can be sure of one thing. Within the walls of the Red Era, he tried to give Ukraine more respect, resources, and rights, a move that was itself a countercurrent in the era of the logic of power. Writing his memoirs in a suburban farmhouse in his later years, Khrushchev once said, "The most important experience of my life was in Ukraine." It was the last words of a leader with a Russian body and a Ukrainian soul. He did not belong to Ukraine, but Ukraine will always be part of his trajectory. Khrushchev was the most un-Soviet person in the Soviet system. While others were cold and reticent, he was passionate. While others were faceless and power-mongering, he broke the silence like a stand-up comedian with his yells. In 1960, on the floor of the United Nations General Assembly, Khrushchev heard the representative of the Philippines accusing the Soviet Union of colonialism, and became furious. He suddenly stood up, took off his shoes and slammed them on the table. "You are the colonialists. You are the dogs of imperialism. At this moment the world was shocked. The media went crazy. The West thought he was crazy, and the Soviets looked dumbfounded. Khrushchev himself, however, didn't care. In a Soviet politics where calm, stoicism, and partisanship were the order of the day, Khrushchev was like a firework exploding in the center of the hall. He never hid his emotions when he was cursing in meetings or when his emotions got the best of him. One of Khrushchev's most common scenes. At the party congress, a sudden outburst of anger, slapping the table, interrupting the speech, opening his mouth to curse. Once at a meeting, a subordinate made a critical suggestion, and he disliked him back on the spot. Are you a pig's head or an American secret agent? His aides, interpreters, and even officers were often so nervous that they couldn't utter a breath for fear that a word would cause him to explode. But that's what separated him from the cold, calculating, bureaucratic Soviet Union. He didn't suppress his emotions, he controlled the stage with them. He was the first Soviet leader to become camera-addicted. In the Soviet Union, state leaders usually stayed out of the public eye, and their photos, voices, and images were strictly controlled. Not Khrushchev. He would pop up on TV and say he was watching a tractor race last night. He would walk onto construction sites, talk to construction workers about their wages, and ask if they had hot water at home. He even told jokes to peasants in the fields, eating cucumbers as he did so. He made the face of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, for the first time with a human face. Although some people say that he is too grassroots team, not solemn enough. But he himself knows. The people remember not you more end, but you are not a living person. One of Khrushchev's political tools is to master the language of the camera. He was never satisfied with writing speeches and issuing orders. He wanted a sense of spectacle. He confronted Nixon at an exhibition, debating the merits of capitalism versus socialism, while pointing to the dishwasher in the kitchen, gesturing and shouting, "Look, this is the future of corn." He was one of the few people who understood that in an agricultural experiment field while gesturing, "Look, this is the future of corn." He was one of the few who understood that in modern politics, image is power. The moment he smashed the idol, he smashed the whole empire of fear. On a spring morning in 1956, the top echelons of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union held their collective breath in a secret meeting. Khrushchev stood up, a thick pile of reports in his hand, and the first words out of his head were, "We have to correct Stalin's grave mistake." He didn't use Stalin's full name, he didn't call him dictator. But the next 4 hours left everyone in the room blue in the face and in a cold sweat. That speech became known as the Secret Report. It was the first official revelation of Stalin's reign of terror in Soviet history. It was also the first internal explosion in the entire communist world. On that day he said no to the whole system. In the report, Khrushchev counts the purges, the repressions, the tortures, the wrongful convictions, the labor camps of the Stalinist period. Not just anyone else, but he himself said, these were all ordered by Stalin. He dismantled in public the image of the Soviet Union as the perfect leader. At that moment, for the first time, the red idol cracked in people's hearts. After the speech, Khrushchev unleashed a storm of de-Stalinization. Many political prisoners were rehabilitated and released. Thousands of Stalin's statues were dismantled, even those near Red Square. School textbooks were rewritten, and Stalin's stories were redacted or even disappeared. Someone cried, "I was brought up that he was a god, and now you're telling me that he was an executioner?" Khrushchev did not hold back, saying, "We're not trying to deny everything, but we can't lie anymore." He was thawing, but the world was still frozen. The thaw sent shockwaves through the population and stirred fear within the party. Stalin's old guard gnashed their teeth, feeling that Khrushchev was betraying the party. Protests broke out even in Poland and Hungary, and the Western media went wild. One senior official had said coldly, "Khrushchev didn't smash Stalin. He smashed our entire legitimacy." Khrushchev, however, resisted the pressure. He thought, if I don't say anything, no one will dare to say anything in the future. He was not a liquidator. He was a fixer. Some people thought that Khrushchev wanted to completely repudiate Stalin, to liberalize. Wrong. He was denouncing the cult of the individual and protecting the collective leadership. He wanted to dismantle fear, not the whole system. He pushed for a system of rotating cadres and limiting the lifetime tenure of power. He opened up the world of literature and the arts to Dr. Zhivago and avant-garde plays. For the first time, the closed Soviet Union signaled to the outside world that we are not monsters. He tried to let the Red Empire breathe. But all honest men pay a price. After the secret report, Khrushchev lost many friends in high places. The struggle within the party intensified, and many people began to join forces against Khrushchev. The faster he reformed, the stronger the opposition. In the eyes of the conservatives, he was a madman. In the eyes of the West, he was a reformer who was not liberal enough. In the end, he did not accomplish the real thaw he wanted. But he did at least give the world a brief breath of fresh air.